The UK column has covered in great detail the lead-in to what is being described as an epidemic of avian influenza across the UK. And the area that I'm going to focus on today is the mass slaughter of poultry in response. But the question which must be asked at the outset is whether this response is proportionate and necessary, even by the government's own metrics and legislation. Now, in response to a Freedom of Information request and a media inquiry from the Animal and Plant Health Agency and the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, respectively, confirmed that over 2 million captive birds have now died. The language used is to infer that this is in large part due to illness, but the most recent statistics from the government, updated on Monday, confirm that just 41 cases of avian flu have been recorded. If you recall the mass slaughter of 2001 ascribed to the prevention of the spread of foot and mouth, or you've watched the UK column documentary Slaughtered on Suspicion, you may not be quite so surprised to learn that this means the government is now killing more than 48,000 birds each time they confirm a case via PCR test. In the words of its inventor, Carrie Mullis, PCR may not be used as a diagnostic test, posing the very significant question, is the government cull lawful or does it constitute malfeasance? The extraordinary power of HA and DEFRA confirm again that no other tests are conducted, which means that there's no investigation into the possibility that a toxicity of some other kind has been introduced into the environment. It's also worth noting that 85% of the birds slaughtered so far have been permanently housed. And as referenced previously, this completely negates the biosecurity countermeasure of keeping birds indoors. The video that you've just been watching is from a few years back, and it's essentially a propaganda piece from the BBC on how birds love to be kept indoors, completely on top of one another. But one hardly needs to contrive the existence of a disease such as bird flu in order to explain why birds like those you've just seen might not be healthy. And if you are buying poultry meat from a supermarket, this is where it comes from. The average lifespan of a bird there being just 42 days due to the use of growth hormones. Now, away from poultry sheds, the annual NFU conference has just taken place, where the focus remains resolutely on the subject of inheritance tax, to the exclusion of a raft of other issues which beset farmers. Steve Reed, the Environment Minister, insists he wants farms to be profitable, while simultaneously forcing many of them into complete reliance on government handouts. And in order to produce anything but food, a farming profitability unit is to be established. And as the image, we can just pop that image back on screen, as this image shows, the only pathway towards such profitability is reckoned to be through technology, the inference being that small farms, for whom such investment is unrealistic, are not a consideration in the future corporatisation of the countryside. And given the bird flu situation and the fact that the Chief Vet's previous role was to unleash the Biosecurity Act in New South Wales, Australia, it is significant that Reid speaks of changes to the APHA operation in Weybridge to bring in a new national biosecurity centre. This just looks like a thinly veiled mechanism by which to destroy all small-scale livestock operations in order that the supermarket cartels and the fake food manufacturers assume control of absolutely everything we eat. But finally, a break in the clouds, metaphorically at least, with the news and, of course, accompanying outrage that BP is to row back on its commitment to so-called renewables in order that it reverts to concentrating on its core business in oil and gas. Now, whilst this will be played down, it's a very strong indication of how the net zero scam is underpinned. The only reason that corporate entities have gone along with the net zero narrative is because they could make money out of it. Their responsibility, though, is to their shareholders and not to the ever more spurious science laid before us. If you are aware of other organisations reneging on similar pledges, please do get in touch, as these are exactly the sorts of development which will help see the scale of the climate. Help people see the scale of the climate change fraud. Now, going back to the theme of bird flu, do stay tuned for extra, as I'm going to give an account of an organic poultry farmer in Devon to whom I've spoken. Just yesterday, Emma Saunders believes that her business will not recover after the destruction of all of her poultry birds, and that was even after the ministry confirmed that 4,000 of them were perfectly healthy, but they were destroyed nonetheless.
Fantastic. I mean, it's just no lessons have been learned from 2001, and it's just incredible how this continues. But we will.
Yeah, I mean, on the contrary, I think plenty of lessons have been learned. I think something we can go into in extra is the compensation scales. And the push. I mean, if we look at farm holdings, I don't have the figures with me, but if we look at how many farm holdings there were in 2001 versus how many there are now, and how much land is in corporate control, I think they've absolutely learned their lesson.
Right. Okay.
But just the wrong lesson for us.
Indeed. Okay, we will talk more about that in extra. Thank you very much, Charles. Thank you to Sandy and to Claire Wills-Harrison for joining us today. We've got to finish there. Do join us in a few minutes for extra. Otherwise, watch the interview at 1 p.m. tomorrow, and we will see you on for another news program 1 p.m. on Friday as usual. See you then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.